Ready to unlock, like, a secret level of Spanish fluency?
Yeah.
Today's deep dive is all about, mastering the imperfect subjunctive.
Right.
Now, I'll be honest, this grammar point used to, like, totally make my head spin. I once tried to compliment a friend's cooking, thinking I was being all subtle and using the imperfect subjunctive, but it turns out I basically told them I wish they were a better chef.
Oh, we've been there.
Really?
That's the thing about the subjunctive, though. It's all about nuance.
Yeah.
Right? About capturing those like subtle shades of meaning that native speakers use all the time.
It's like the difference between just speaking Spanish and actually, like, sounding Spanish.
Exactly. And that's where the imperfect subjunctive, really comes in.
Okay.
You've been diving into this Spanish grammar textbook,
Yeah.
which focuses on this, tricky tense.
Right.
Now, before we kind of jump into the specifics, it might be helpful to, like, remind ourselves what the subjunctive mood is all about in general.
Yeah.
Good point. It's easy to get lost in the grammar weeds.
Right. So in the simplest terms, the subjunctive mood is all about expressing actions or states that aren't, like, facts,
Okay.
but rather, possibilities, wishes, doubts, emotions,
Right.
those subjective things.
Okay.
It's about the gray areas of language, not just the black and white.
Okay. That makes sense. So how does the imperfect subjunctive fit into all of this?
Well, the imperfect subjunctive is like the superstar of expressing these subjective ideas, but with a twist.
Okay.
The name might throw you off
Yeah.
because even though it says imperfect,
Right.
it's not just about the past.
Okay.
It's about painting a picture of uncertainty or subjectivity, whether it's in the past, present, or even the future.
Okay. So it's not about a specific time. It's more about a vibe.
Exactly. Think of it as the wishful thinking tense, the what if tense, or even like the, oh, wouldn't it be nice if tense.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking tense. It has a nice ring to it. It does.
Yeah.
One of the most common and useful ways you'll hear this tense is with phrases that express, wishes or desires.
Okay.
And the textbook highlights this perfectly with examples using ojalá.
Oh, yeah. Ojalá. I use that one all the time, mostly when I'm wishing I had more vacation days.
Me too. But it's interesting you mentioned that because ojalá is more than just a simple, like, I wish.
Right.
It actually taps into this, like, very Spanish cultural emphasis on wishing and hoping, often with this underlying sense of if only.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like you're acknowledging that what you're wishing for might be a long shot,
Right.
but you're putting it out there anyway.
Exactly. And that's why ojalá is so powerful.
Okay.
It lets you express longing, hope, and even a bit of resignation,
Yeah.
all in one little word.
Wow.
The textbook gives the example, ojalá tuviera más dinero.
Okay.
If only I had more money.
Next
Right.
one in my life.
But you see how it's more than just, like, stating a desire?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're saying a person can dream, can't they?
Okay, I love that. It's like you're adding this extra layer of, like, emotion and cultural understanding to your Spanish.
And that's what makes the imperfect subjunctive so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's not just about grammatical correctness. It's about, like, tapping into the heart of the language.
So we've talked about using the imperfect subjunctive for expressing wishes,
Right.
but what other situations call for this, like, versatile tense?
Well, another fascinating way it's used is to express, like, doubt or disbelief, especially about something that happened in the past,
Okay.
which the textbook illustrates with a great example.
Okay.
Imagine someone telling you they were acting as if they owned the place.
Okay.
In Spanish, you could use the imperfect subjunctive to convey that same sense of, like, disbelief.
Oh, that's perfect for when you want to subtly throw some shade.
Exactly. It's all about, like, mastering those subtle cues that make your Spanish sound more natural and in tune with how native speakers, actually express themselves.
This is already making so much more sense. I'm starting to see how mastering the imperfect subjunctive really is like unlocking a secret level of fluency.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just speaking Spanish,
Right?
you're speaking the language of wishes, doubts, and possibilities.
I'm hooked. So what other linguistic treasures does this imperfect subjunctive have in store for us?
Well, let's talk about another way the imperfect subjunctive can, add that extra layer of nuance to your Spanish
Okay.
hypothetical comparisons.
Right.
Imagine you're talking about someone who's complaining about a rainy day, saying something like, ugh, this weather is awful.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on a beach somewhere.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well, especially during those long winter months.
Right. So in Spanish,
Yeah.
you could use the imperfect subjunctive with como si,
Oh.
which means as if,
Right.
to create this like hypothetical,
No.
often ironic comparison.
Okay.
You could say, se queja como si viviera en el desierto. He's complaining as if he lived in the desert.
Ooh, I love that. It's like you're playfully pointing out the absurdity of the situation.
Exactly. It's that subtle humor that the imperfect subjunctive allows you to, convey. It's like saying, come on, it's not that bad,
Right.
but in a much more, elegant Spanish way.
So it's not just about being grammatically correct. It's about using grammar to be witty and culturally relevant.
Precisely. Now, speaking of cultural relevance,
Okay.
the textbook also delves into another fascinating use of the imperfect subjunctive
Okay.
polite requests.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have thought of using the subjunctive for something like that. I usually associate it with more like hypothetical or emotional expressions.
That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
But remember, the subjunctive is all about like navigating those gray areas of language.
Yeah.
And politeness definitely falls into that category.
Yeah.
It's about, softening your tone and showing respect,
Right.
which is especially important in Spanish-speaking cultures.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how would you use the imperfect subjunctive to make a polite request?
Well, one common way is to use the are form of the imperfect subjunctive
Okay.
with verbs like deber,
Okay.
should,
Okay.
or queer, want, to make suggestions or requests less direct.
Okay.
For example, imagine you're at a restaurant
Right.
and you want to ask for the check.
Right.
Instead of saying, we want the check,
Yeah.
which can sound a bit blunt,
Right.
you could say, quisiéramos la cuenta, por favor.
Okay.
We would like the bill, please.
Oh, I see. So it's like you're saying if it wouldn't be too much trouble.
Exactly. It's about conveying that same message of like politeness and respect.
These subtle nuances are fascinating. I can see how mastering them would really make a difference in how natural and fluent you sound in Spanish.
Absolutely. It's about going beyond the textbook and, understanding the cultural context of the language.
Right.
So we've covered expressing wishes, doubts, hypothetical situations,
Right.
and even polite requests.
All with the imperfect subjunctive. Is there anything else this like linguistic chameleon can do?
There's actually one more key use highlighted in the textbook that's worth exploring.
Okay.
Expressing surprise or disbelief about past events.
Okay.
Let's say a friend tells you they ran into someone you both haven't seen in ages.
Right.
You could express your surprise by saying, "No me digas. Qué raro que estuviera por aquí."
Okay.
You're kidding. How strange that they were around here.
So you're using the imperfect subjunctive to emphasize how unexpected or unusual the situation was.
Exactly. It's like saying, "I can't believe it. What are the chances?"
That's brilliant. So in a nutshell, the imperfect subjunctive is like this Swiss Army knife of Spanish grammar, allowing you to express a wide range of emotions, possibilities, and cultural nuances.
It really is. And just like a Swiss Army knife, the more you use it, the
Yeah.
more comfortable you become with all its, different functions.
So true. It's funny. I used to think of grammar as this like set of rigid rules, but learning about the imperfect subjunctive has like really changed my perspective.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it's made me realize that grammar isn't just about being correct.
Right.
It's about having the tools to, express yourself with nuance
Yeah.
and precision.
Right.
Especially when it comes to those subtle cultural cues that can like make or break a conversation.
That's a great insight. And it's something that often gets overlooked, I think, in language learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing vocabulary and verb conjugations.
Right.
It's about understanding how those elements, work together
Yeah.
to create meaning and connection.
Exactly. It's like the difference between being able to read a map
Yeah.
and actually knowing how to like navigate a city.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And just like navigating a city, becoming fluent in a language takes practice,
Yeah.
exploration,
Yeah.
and a willingness to, embrace those moments when you might take a wrong turn.
Absolutely. So for our listener who's been on this deep dive with us today, exploring all the ins and outs of the imperfect subjunctive,
Right.
what's the key takeaway you want them to walk away with?
I want them to remember that the imperfect subjunctive,
Yeah.
while it might seem, daunting at first,
Right.
is truly a gateway to a deeper level of fluency and cultural understanding.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond, textbook Spanish
Yeah.
and into the realm of expressing wishes, doubts, possibilities, and those subtle nuances that make the language so rich and expressive.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. How might this approach of embracing the nuances of grammar change how you approach learning other aspects of a language? Or even like other areas of life where detail and perspective make all the difference? Until next time, happy learning.